Welcome to the Dr. Mudgil podcast. I could not be more excited to have Nick Diodato here with me, who is a big dog over at Vayner Media. And I met Nick in May of 2018 when I attended a 4D session, which is the deep immersion. It's a day of deep immersion into Vayner Media techniques and, teaches business owners how to use social media to promote their business, essentially. And it's a heavy day. Nick is a very special guy. He's exceedingly warm, like super articulate, sharp as a fucking razor. And I really, with the phone conversation we had before the 4Ds, like that really resonated. And since the 4Ds, I've been following you on Instagram, and like we DM a bit, and I consider you a friend. And you're a beautiful person, and I'm really psyched to have you on my podcast, because that day played a very big role in what I'm doing right now, and you were a huge part of that day. So to have you sitting in this chair across from me, man, is something super special.
That's wow. For so many reasons that like hits me in all the feels. But I don't know. I'm like proud of you.
Thanks,
like we
man.
don't spend a ton of time together, but I'm just like, I'm looking around and I see the stuff that you're putting out, and like, I'm just proud of everything that you're doing. Like,
I love it.
It's all coming from the right place. So it's just been super fun to watch, kind of, from first phone conversation to almost 18 months later.
Yeah.
Like what's become, and it's so cool to watch. So I am like, when you were like, you got to come out to Hicksville, I was like, where is Hicksville? And I'm like, all right, I can get there in an hour Uber. I'm there, right?
Yeah, man, that was amazing.
Took 5 seconds to make happen. So I couldn't be more excited to be here.
Yeah, I was pretty psyched. I think I asked you on like Sunday or Monday, but it was like a few days ago.
I was like, immediately, let's set it up.
And I'm super psyched, man.
Yeah.
So this is about you, man, because I think a lot of people know you, but don't know a lot about you. And you're obviously like a huge dynamic figure at Vayner Media. You manage the Sasha group, I believe, right? Which is a small business,
correct?
Like a business my size,
small mid-market focused agency, a part of the Vayner X family. So Vayner Media, Fortune 500, Sasha Group, small mid-market business.
Right.
Yep.
Or like my business.
Correct.
And you also moderate the 4D session, which I think has grown tremendously even since when I did it. I think I was number 19. That I know for a fact because of yesterday.
So we've done about 42 of them now, and this is like one-day immersion, digital discovery and deep dive, where we bring in small business operators, owners, and we bring them through what is a full day of coursework and workshopping in every one of the disciplines that we really hang our hat on as an agency. So influencer marketing, paid media, personal brand development. Gary comes in and does 60 to 90 minutes with the group. And it's really been this evolution over the past year and a half since I've taken it over of, these social and digital platforms are changing so fast that how do we keep up with them? And then how do we give small and mid-market businesses the tools that they need to stay on top of them? And that has been, for me, having a real passion for working with small and mid-market businesses has been one of the most rewarding parts of the process.
Yeah, it's a deep day, man. It is a deep.
Yeah, people at the end of it are like come out like at a 12-round fight, like kind of scratching their eyes, like what's good? Where am I? But it
is an exhausting day. I mean, it's like pretty fucking intense.
Yeah, I mean, I tell people all the time, when's the last time you sat in almost like a classroom type setting for 10 hours? And they like think about it and they're like, it's been a while. But we do a ton of kind of workshopping in that day, so try to break it up, and then we do dinner the night before with everybody that's going to be in the room the next day. And I think one of the strongest components of the entire experience is community, right? We had it was great to see you last night. We had 40 to 50 people, alumni that came from all over the world, and we had some of an international presence come and just hang out, chop it up with people from different classes, and really just kind of like strengthen the community. So, I mean, thanks for coming out last night.
Yeah,
but
it was awesome.
It's just a testament to, in this space of I'm starting a business, or I run a small or mid-market business. I think the entrepreneurial pursuit is obviously it's a super lonely one at times, right? Like, and you can get so stuck in your day-to-day, that to pick your head up, realize that there's other people in a very similar position, whether or not they're in the same vertical as you or they do the same thing day-to-day is irrelevant. I think just the nature of a more entrepreneurial path or pursuit is what really resonates and connects people. And I'm just super lucky and fortunate that we've been able to create something that provides a little bit of a home for that.
Yeah, I mean, it really is exactly that. And we were talking about this before we started recording the podcast. It's just being around that energy is, like you said, infectious. And for me personally, because to be perfectly honest, like a lot of the technical stuff with how to employ the tactics with social media are like way over my head. You know, I mean, I can grasp the basic concepts, but even like the presentation yesterday, I was like, my head's spinning because it's technical.
Yeah, we're nerds.
Which is great because that information is there, right? But what I took away from it the most, and what was the most special thing to me, and really what made that day a very pivotal point in what I'm doing now, was that energy. Kind of just, and keeping in contact with a couple of the folks there, and we're kind of like keeping tabs on each other and like seeing each other grow, which is it's awesome. And I had that same feeling last night. I'm still feeling the effects of all that empathy rosé.
Good.
I was thinking,
good.
Yeah.
And because that will wear off, but I think the relationships won't.
Of course, yeah.
And you cultivate those over time. And I think when we take a very different approach, we're really playing this game forever. Gary, in terms of everything that he puts out into the world, I think that's one of the more consistent messages is he's playing the long game forever. And I think that's the approach that we're taking as well. So, for us to get people in a room and for me to, think about this for a second. There's a guy that runs an acai food bowl truck in North Carolina. And there's another gentleman who runs a pest control company in North Carolina. The guy who runs the pest control company has eaten the acai bowl truck many times.
That's amazing.
But has never known the founder of that company. And for some reason, they're both at the Vayner Media offices in New York City yesterday, and they both connect, and they're like, wait a second, you're that guy? You're that guy? It's just like the world's a lot smaller than we think it is.
So true.
And especially, when we connect people that have this kind of DNA, it's electric.
Yeah, man. That's crazy, man. The world is so crazy small.
Crazy
I'm
small.
reminded of that every day. But apart from all the Vayner stuff that you do, you have a fitness brand. It's like high-end fitness gear.
Yeah. Active apparel.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was just checking out your website. Well, WOLACO, is that how you say it?
Yeah, so I love this because people actually pronounce the majority of brands' names wrong, right? Like Adidas is Adidas, right?
Yeah.
So it's called WOLACO. It stands for Way of Life Athletic Company. So usually when I meet people and I tell them about it, I just say Way of Life Athletic Company. And then later they see the acronym and they're like, oh, that's cool. That makes sense.
Actually, that's exactly. I was like, I wonder what that means. And I went to the website. I was like, oh shit, like it's an acronym.
It clicks, right?
Yeah, it's cool.
So I've been running that on the side with my two business partners.
So the three of you guys own the company?
Correct. Yeah. So I mean, we have investors, but in terms of founder co-founder situation, founder and co-founder, and we've been doing that now. The company is we launched on Kickstarter 5 years ago, just about 5 years ago. But we've really been kind of like getting out of the mud and like really starting to find our stride probably in the past 2.5 years. Building something I'm super passionate about on the side and going through the process of building a business from the ground floor. And, talk about something really rewarding, finding something that you're incredibly passionate about, and then building a product around it, and then trying to sell it back to somebody.
Right, man. Well, you're obviously incredibly fucking jacked, ripped, and in great shape. Were you like a collegiate athlete?
So I didn't play sports in college. I played throughout high school, and I'm probably one of those telltale stories of a kid that probably worked too hard leading up to that and got a little bit burnt out and probably disenchanted with athletics. But I never lost track of the way that being active made me feel. And I think it's that feeling, right, of a good sweat or exerting your body and then the endorphin rush afterwards
Totally.
that I never stopped chasing. So for me, post-college, I didn't go into that lull that happens sometimes when you pursue a more professional career path. If anything, I went completely in the opposite direction. And that's not to say that I'm by any means this incredibly regimented person that has scheduled runs and lifts. It's actually the opposite. I react to the way I want my body to feel. So I know that if I got a bad night's sleep, that the last thing that's going to make me feel better is, the bad food that I put in. It's actually going to be going and getting on a bike or going for a run. So I'm very reactionary to how I want my body to feel. And then in terms of like just, passion points, I do have a real passion for wanting to help other people understand the very holistic approach that goes into being an effective person. An effective person could mean an effective professional. It could mean an effective partner. It could mean an effective contributing part of your community. But what goes into that? And it's so holistic. It's what goes into your ears. What are you listening to? What are you consuming? What are you reading? What do you put in your mouth? What are you eating? And then lastly, like, how are you exerting your body? How are you moving every day? And, I think a lot of people have so many interesting opinions on this. And, for me, it's just we have the opportunity to be more sedentary than ever. We don't have to get up to turn on the TV.
Yeah.
We don't have to we can talk directly to Alexa if we need something. So we have the unfortunate opportunity of being more sedentary than ever. And I'm just somebody who loves moving, right?
Yeah.
My kind of mantra that I've adopted more recently is my goal in life is actually just to be able to move freely in body, mind, and spirit, right? I don't want anything to hold me back at the end of the day. I just want to be free in body, mind, and spirit. So if I can move from point A to B as effectively as I can, I feel good. If I have the ability to kind of navigate between thoughts freely, I feel good. So taking the restrictions out of me being able to move freely.
I like that. It's funny. I usually ask my guests, what their definition of success is, and to kind of delineate.
That's it.
You basically just answer that question.
That's
without
it.
Me even
Next
asking,
question.
Man. Yeah.
The ability to move freely. And I think we all take that for granted. We put these things in place in front of us, right, that prohibit us from moving freely, right? We create these rules for ourselves that we only do this on certain days or we only do that. But really the goal for me is like, if as soon as I leave this podcast, if somebody texts me and says, hey, do you want to go and do this? And I physically want to do that, I want to have the ability to go and do it. And that's not to say that I'm not responsible with my time or I'm not committing to my obligations. It just means I want to have the freedom to be able to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And that is move freely.
I like that, man.
Yeah.
That's a nice definition. So just before we get into like other questions that I want to ask.
This has gone in every direction and very, very quickly.
I just, you are like in fucking amazing shape, and what do you do for exercise? What's your nutrition like? Obviously there's some form, as free as you are, there's some regimented aspect to keep yourself in such great shape.
Yeah. Help me, do this for me. Help me understand who's listening right now in terms of like maybe what that person is, help me understand who that might be.
It's kind of like a mishmash of the guests that I've had. So there's some fitness folks that are listening to this who are obviously in like tremendous shape.
Got it.
There's some of my patients who want to get in better shape.
Amazing.
I have these conversations with my patients all the time, like, what I personally did to transform my body. And that might not necessarily be the right thing for everybody, but for me, that's what worked.
Of course. That helps. So, I think for me, I'm not a professional, meaning like you said, right? I'm not a professional dietitian. I'm not a professional health and wellness coach. I'm not a professional trainer. I'm not a professional instructor. What I am is somebody who's insanely curious about myself. So I ask myself a ton of questions, and I've always done that. And I'm insanely curious about my boundaries. So in terms of like how you get into this shape, like this was like from my teenage years, this is how I was, right? I was just insanely curious of where my boundaries were. So I started asking these questions about fitness super early. Not how many reps do I need to do to achieve this, or how many pounds do I need to lift to get here. It was more of just like can I ask myself these questions about my exercise and my routine and figure out through kind of self-analysis what works for me.
But there's a lot of discipline also, you know. I mean, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But you can't have like a ripped six-pack without, you know.
Totally. Not eating the right things.
Right.
Yeah,
or exercising in the right way.
And I couldn't agree more with you. So to paint the picture, I love running. Like, people don't love running because it sucks at first, right? But then something happens where you break through this initial suck, and it's one of the most beautiful things that I think, for me, right, you can do, is to be completely. So I think one of the most, again, we're going to go in so many different directions, but I think one of the most attractive things in another human being is to have control over your body. So dancers or people, you know, yogis who can contort their bodies, people that have real control over the way their body moves. And I think runners, right, in a lot of ways, when you see somebody running who really loves running, you're like, it doesn't even look like they're trying.
Yeah, it's effortless. Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
And for people that hate running,
which is like, me, I fall into that category.
I think about every stride and movement.
Yeah.
And once you break through that initial wall, running is one of the most beautiful things, in my opinion, right? So I broke through that wall super early, probably in my teenage years. So I love running. So I do a ton of running, right? And a ton means 2, 3, 5, 8, 7, miles at a time.
Okay. How many times a week?
Probably 3.
Okay.
Like, realistically 3. And it's all, again, like, it's all back to like how I feel. And that's probably because I was a little bit more disciplined early and I had a more regular routine and regimen.
Did you run track in high school?
So I did. I ran the 800 and I ran the mile. So longer distances. So I've always been kind of a little bit more built for distance. But I did run track in high school. And I think that running probably set the foundation early for me. And then I enjoyed lifting weights, and I kind of enjoyed pushing myself physically early, and I built the foundation for it. I had somebody on my podcast last week, and we were talking about this, and I said, do you think it's harder, and I'll ask you this question, do you think it's harder to change your habits in your early 20s or your late 20s?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it really depends on the individual. And I talked about this in the podcast that I'm releasing today, which is what I'm actually the guest on the podcast.
Amazing.
Is I didn't hit my stride until, like, that real aha moment in my life was until I was like 23, when I was in med school. But with fitness, that didn't happen until I had a year after I had my third child. I was 36 or 37. When I really had like a fitness transformation, and it started with a bet I had with my brother-in-law. It was on Thanksgiving, and my brother-in-law was in like tremendous shape at one point in his life, like just jacked, like like he was like shaped like you.
Yeah.
And I never was in shape. I was like a skinny fat, like my whole life. Like the moobs, the gut. I mean, I look skinny, but I never wanted to have my shirt off.
Yeah.
And we were sitting on Thanksgiving, and I had a scotch on my belly, and he had a beer in his belly, and he just looked over. He's like, "Dude, what happened to us?" And we had a bet to see who was going to get in the best shape by Memorial Day.
Love it.
So I was 196 pounds, like 20% body fat.
Yeah.
And I got all the way down to like 154 pounds, like 8% body fat.
And how long?
Which it was like a very short period. So it was between Thanksgiving and Memorial Day. And I was crazy disciplined, but that's how I'm like insane when it comes to things like that.
That's how you're wired.
But it was very unhealthy. Like I looked like I was dying. Like people would see me and say, "Oh wow, you lost a lot of weight. You look great." But then behind my back, they'd be like, "Dude, does this guy like die? Like what's wrong with him? Is he sick?"
Yeah.
I mean, then since then I've slowly been putting the weight back on.
Yep.
So now I'm like
in the right ways.
In the right way. So like,
of course.
I'm like 185 pounds, like 10%, 11% body fat.
Yep.
But I didn't have that fitness moment until later on in life, and I realized that I had no foundation, right? So you have that really strong foundation to fall back on.
Completely.
And that's something that now, like having kids, I'm like, listen, you gotta
wire them
get
early.
in good shape, and that it's much easier to maintain it than build it when you're like 35 or 36 years old.
So, and I think that's an interesting point. And depending on who's listening, right? For me, I had maybe the fitness aspect, but I had no understanding about nutrition and diet. So I ate everything and anything and everything. And you could see it in my face, in my energy. And the big unlock for me more recently, the reason why I probably look like I do today, which is probably almost in better shape than I was when I was 18, 19, 20, is because I just figured out nutrition.
Right.
And I just didn't complicate it in the process. There's like a list of maybe 15 whole foods that I eat on a weekly basis, and I just stick to that. And people are like, isn't that boring? Isn't that bland? And I'm like, no, it's totally not. These are delicious whole foods that, like you could eat a pound of them and feel, completely full and satisfied.
So what is that? Just for my own curiosity.
For sure, yeah. No, I think it's like, at breakfast, it's a combination of either oats, blueberries, grains, raspberries, maybe eggs and spinach and egg whites on days where I want something a little bit more hearty. At lunch, it's, chicken or ground turkey, rice, quinoa, and a mix of spinach or broccoli, maybe sweet potato. And then for dinner, it's probably some combination of that, but maybe I'll add in a fish, different types of whole veggies, like really not super complicated stuff.
Just eating clean.
Yeah. Stuff that I enjoy eating.
Right.
That's, fulfilling. I'm not depriving myself of anything at the end of the day. And then the big difference is, for other people listening, I love pizza. It's my kryptonite.
My cheat meal, man.
I love it. But I don't cheat myself of anything. Like I had 4 slices yesterday, and I won't go to the track and run 10 miles because I had 4 slices yesterday. But I know that at some point I'm going to work a little bit harder, right? Because of the way it made me feel. I woke up and I was like, I'm a little sluggish today because I literally put 4 slices of pizza in my body. Like I'm gonna get on a bike today because of it. So again, I think it's really important for people to map back how they feel and then their actions to it.
Right, but you also are someone who strikes me as an extraordinarily evolved person.
I appreciate that.
I mean, you are. Like, you're very in tune, So it's really easy. It's like for someone like yourself who has the mindset that you have, who you're so in tune with your thoughts and, your movements and stuff, it's easy for you to, what your body needs, right? So, you had 4 slices of pizza. You want to have 4 slices of pizza. I mean, I do the same thing. I fucking love pizza.
Yeah.
But I'll just hop on the bike like later today because that's going to make me feel better because of the way I felt this morning.
I really appreciate where you're coming from with that. Like I really do. And I think at the end of the day, it's like, how curious do you have the ability to ask yourself questions?
Right. That's being evolved.
Can you? I guess I'm taking it for granted, like the same way that I do about the conversations we have around social media every day and digital marketing. Like I take that stuff for granted. Like it's a part of my norm. It's a part of my everyday. But I think one of the most empowering things that you can do is just ask yourself more questions. Like, why do I watch this television show? Or why do I eat this thing? Why am I going to this event? Like, just ask yourself, and not with zero judgment.
Right. In
return, like I'm not asking myself this question because I think it's good or bad. I just want to know why.
Dude, I think that's such an amazing thing. It's such an amazing idea. It's funny, when I first started working out with my trainer, Rasan, who I still work out with today, who I'm lifting with later. Shout out. Yeah, he's my man. He's kind of like my therapist, because I spend so much time with him.
Everybody needs one. Yeah.
But, when we first started working out, he said, okay, what are your goals? And my goal was literally just, I want to get jacked. I want to just be jacked and ripped, Yes. And he's like, all right, we're going to do...
Because you hadn't had that before.
Never.
That's it.
Never. And
it's important to know.
And I was very honest with him and myself. He's like, all right, we're going to do this functional stuff and this, that. I was like, dude, honestly, I just care about
cut that out right good. Now.
I just want to
I want biceps.
Right. I want muscular.
Give
and
me
go
a back.
With my shirt off.
Yeah, I got it.
But it sounds silly. But being honest with myself and what my goals really were is what really, I love lifting weights. Yep. That's what I love doing now. But it evolved into that passion developed because I was honest with myself with what my goals were. You know what I mean?
Yes, of course. And I think people need to be honest of where that's coming from. And with no fear of judgment in return. When you walked into a trainer, the last thing a trainer who's gone to school, who's gone through extensive training to understand how anatomy is combined with everything else, wants to hear is, dude, help me get jacked.
Right.
It's the last thing they want to hear.
Yeah, totally.
But without any fear of judgment, you're like, hey, this is what I want. I know how I'm wired. Get me there. And then we can talk about all the other stuff.
So now we're doing the other stuff.
Yeah.
Because now my body needs to do the other stuff.
Which is great because it's going to serve you well when you're 60, 70, 80 years old.
Yeah, totally, man.
And you know that, but because you're taking a very long and holistic approach to this, it's not like I need to get here tomorrow. I will get there at some point.
That's the long game, man.
Yep.
So where did you grow up? First of all, how old are you, man?
28.
Jesus, man.
28 years old.
Young man.
It's like the age thing. Sometimes I have to, like everybody else who, gets asked that question, you're like, how old am I?
Yeah.
How old am I actually really? But yeah, I'm 28 years old and I was raised, I was born in Philadelphia.
Oh, really? What part of Philly?
So I was raised in Philly until I was like 3 or 4, so not super familiar with, kind of like where and when, and then I moved to the Jersey Shore and then spent my entire childhood growing up as a kid at the Jersey Shore.
I always thought you were from the West Coast, man.
It's so funny. I get that kind of energy from people, but I'm full Jersey.
Oh, like it's beachy.
Yes, yeah. I mean, and I grew up on the beach. Like I grew up lifeguarding as a kid at the on the ocean. Every summer was spent on the sand as long as possible. Mom would like throw you on the beach and be like, "Don't come home until X time." Like, I absolutely grew up on the beach and in the water. But at the same time, Jersey's got almost the same as Long Island, right? We've got real loyalty to where we're from.
Yeah.
So I definitely grew up with big Jersey ties.
Okay, cool, man. And then you went to college in Jersey also? Or?
I did. So I was the first from my family to go to college.
Really?
Yeah. So
what do your parents do? Do you have siblings also?
Yeah. No. So parents, mom works at FedEx. She drives a truck. Dad works for. He does data and cloud-based storage and hardware-based storage as well.
So is he like a tech guy?
So it's my parents. This is such. I've never really talked about them. Like in terms of like my social presence, my personal brand. I've always, of course, like given them all of the credit with the person that I've become, but I haven't really told their story on a format, right? So my parents, I have 4 of them, are completely the reason why I am who I am. So my parents got divorced when I was young. They both found people that they both found their life partner thereafter. So I'm like, every time somebody's like, I come from a divorced family, I'm like, I come from a divorced family.
Do your nuclear parents get along?
So I think that they're appreciative of one another and what they've contributed to my brother and I's life. So that, I do think that they get along in that respect. But mom drives the trucks for FedEx. My stepfather is retired, but works in a bait and tackle shop. And then my dad previously worked for a division of IBM, not necessarily a tech guy, has an incredible story, never went to college.
Because that sounds like a job you'd have to go to college for.
Yeah, he never went to college. He does sales for this company, Israeli-based data company, but he started, kind of selling printers and then just climbed the ladder and has this amazing story about how he got to where he is today. And, I think from
is he Italian, like from
he is.
From Italy?
He's not direct. He's not off the boat. But he's got such incredible energy, Italian energy. He is so proud that we come from an area of Italy that really is almost like a place where peasants are from.
You went back recently. I was following your Instagram, and your story and stuff while you were traveling.
Yeah, we've got. Roots, and I love, again, we're going in so many different directions. But my parents, right? So my stepfather, a fisherman, works in a bait and tackle shop. He taught me really how to do things with my hands. Right. So there's almost nothing that you could ask me to do within a home or outside of it that I wouldn't know how to do with my hands or be able to figure out. So you need me to fix something? I got it. Like people call me in New York City because obviously New York City kids are bred a little bit differently. Like when they need something done, they need to build something, they call me. Right. And then in terms of my mom,
Did you enjoy that?
I love it.
You do, okay.
Oh, I love it. I love building stuff. Right. Like built my living room table. I love building stuff. And then my mom, she instilled in me this incredible ability to take care of people. Like, it all comes from my mom. I would have friends over for, study parties, like when I was in elementary school, and mom would come downstairs with just, like meat and cheese platters and crackers and drinks after drinks. And I'm like, Mom, like, go away. As a kid, you're like, Mom, get out of here. Stop coming downstairs. And I was like, and now I look back on that.
She's Italian also?
Yes.
Okay, that sounds like a very Italian mom type of thing to do, yeah.
And now I look back on that and I'm like, thank God she did all those things. And that's in my DNA. That's, that's who I am. And then my father and my stepmother, my father really, in terms of business acumen and relationships, just really quickly, when my parents shared custody, when I would go and spend time with my dad and my stepmother, I would get in the car with my dad and he was just hustling, like really grinding, trying to make it. And he would just be on conference calls the entire time we drove that hour and a half back to his place in Pennsylvania. And I would just listen to him. I would just stick my head against the glass and look at taillights of other cars and just listen to my dad talk to other people for hours.
That's amazing. I mean, I think you must have latently picked up so much.
Osmosis, man. Like everything. And people, like he was doing the best he could with what he had, and I would just sit there and soak it all in, and that was how I, till this day, I say that's how I learned to talk to people.
Yeah, I mean, you were, and that, obviously I'm blowing you up here because you're the man, but
I appreciate
you
that.
You were like, even yesterday when you were like standing on the chair and like kind of, off the cuff, just kind of engaging with everybody. You have a real gift for that. Like you're an amazing public speaker. You're very poised. You're super articulate. And you make everyone feel comfortable. It
doesn't come without practice, but again, like having, and shout out to my stepmother before, because I'm going to send this to my entire family now that you gave me the opportunity to give them all love. But she took me out early and like taught me so much about presenting yourself. Like she took me out super early and like almost redid my entire wardrobe. And that was her way of connecting with me super early. But like taught me the importance of presenting yourself properly, and like just gave me the confidence that I have today to be as bold as I am, whether it's public speaking or even just being as curious to wear different things or pursue different areas of interest. She gave me a lot of confidence early. And like, it seems kind of, like, what do you mean she gave you confidence? Like giving you the confidence to wear something in a school as a kid in elementary that like none of the other kids are wearing, and telling you that it looks good, and then you having the confidence to go to school and wear that, and despite what other kids say about you, you're confident in who you are. Just like the exponential impact over time.
It's everything, man. Yeah.
So like parents listening, like encourage your child to wear the funky thing.
Yeah. Like
we see it in movies and television shows all the time, but like when you do it, it really does work.
Yeah, that is amazing, man.
Yeah. So in terms of all, public speaking and kind of the, the confidence, I think, having worked so closely alongside Gary for the past 6 years, I've watched him step up on a stage or in front of the entire company so many times.
Right.
And I retain by osmosis. Like I watch people do things, and I really watch. And then what I do is I try to figure out, okay, like what is my version of that? Like how can I take a little bit of this, and not lose my voice in the process? Because that's the most important thing,
right?
Is my voice. I think we want to emulate people, or we're inspired by people, and we want to take things from them and we want to make them our own. But at the end of the day, they have to be your own. And if they're not your own, people are going to sniff out inauthenticity in that process. So what I've been able to do, super luckily, is just I can shoot from the hip, right? Because I have the tools, the vernacular to be able to do so. But it's got to come from a place of real purpose, real intention.
Sure.
And I think people receive that well when you do.
Absolutely, man. I mean, it's obviously it's obvious to me.
And I want to reflect that back at you, because I feel that as well, right? Like
that.
having been in your world for a little over a year now, and just kind of seeing the evolution, if whoever is listening or watching, I hope that they can see that too. And anybody who says differently just doesn't know you.
Yeah.
That's it. They just don't know you.
You know, doing this also, like, as much as I've been doing it now, first of all, you have to be yourself. You have to be yourself, you know. But you just get so much more comfortable being yourself. Like, I feel like going through this, even doing this podcast, it's helped me learn so much more about myself too, and be much more comfortable with who I am. Because, you know, even at 44, I'm still evolving.
Yes.
You know, but it's embracing that, you know, and it's kind of riding the wave, but, you know, and being true to yourself while you're riding the wave, you know.
You can be so curious about yourself and have so many conversations with yourself, but it's this format, this dialogue, this feedback, this, you know, being able to exchange thoughts and ideas with other people that give us like real world experience and perspective. Like, more than anything else, it gives us perspective. Like, to hear your story about, you know, never having that foundation for athleticism or sport, or, you know, even fitness and wellness, and then at that age, like, flipping a switch, it just helps me understand how you're wired and what type of person you are.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
And like,
no, totally, man.
It's,
Yeah.
you know, your story makes all the more sense, because if somebody meets you today, they're like, man, this guy's got it figured out.
Right.
You know, like, he's well dressed, he's extremely articulate, he has a successful practice. The letters D and R precede his name, you know? But I don't know where you've come from.
Yeah.
I have no idea. You know?
It's interesting because that people always assume that I've been in shape my whole life, and all that. I'm like, no, man. That's why I think I love doing this, because literally, if I can do it, like, anybody can do it. I have the worst fucking genetics for physique, you know, but it's anything is possible, man. You know, it's just a matter of just grinding your way through it, you know. Yeah,
I was going back and forth with somebody the other day on Instagram. I think it was yesterday, and I had put something up, and it was basically, you know, I'll summarize, but it was. That big idea that you had, somebody else has had before, and somebody else has right now. And the only difference between that big idea and it becoming a reality is your effort and your execution. And somebody commented, and they were like, well, you know, I think people underestimate how far money plays into that. And I was just like, sure. Right? But when you decided to get in shape, you didn't say, man, if I had better genetics. I'm sure maybe it might have passed through your mind very quickly, but you did not dwell on it.
No.
And that's the reason why you are where you are today. And for everybody else who's listening, that excuse that you're making up for the thing that you want to do or the person you want to be is the thing that's standing between you and what you want to do and what you want to be.
So true.
And like, it's not genetics, it's not the Ivy League education, it's not the leg up in some other capacity, it's you.
Yeah.
And like, I love that you didn't dwell on your genetics as the reason.
I say this all the time in those little, like, you know, 1 minute rants I do every now and then, but it's excuses versus execution, you know, like, it's so easy to make an excuse. I mean, it's so easy, you know, for anything, you know, but the execution, the effort. This is a great line that I got from one of my trainers. He loves saying this, and it's so true. Effort is free, you know, and effort is free. You don't need fucking money to employ effort, and then that effort's going to allow you to execute, right?
Yeah.
So we're going all over the place, like you said.
I love it. Whatever. I think this is just you and I catching up.
Yeah, I love this, but I want to just go back to, you know, you grew up in Jersey. Where did you go to college, and then how did you go from that to what you're doing now?
Awesome. Yeah. So first person in my family to go to college, and my parents were great. They were like, this is a non-negotiable, like, it's time, we need to get back on track as a family and like set the trajectory for the rest.
Oh, you knew your whole intention was to go to college.
Correct.
Right?
It
your
was.
whole family was behind you, like,
yes,
you're
gonna do this, right?
Like, you're the oldest, right? You're your brother.
So I have half brothers and sisters that are older than me, but none of them went to like a traditional 4-year university.
Is that right?
Correct. So first kid in my family to go to college, I went to Rider University out in Jersey. And my experience there was the relationships that I made more so than the coursework.
Did you live there? Like, you lived at the college?
So I have a funny kind of story about college. I got kicked out the first day of my dorm and was not permitted to enter a dorm room Ryder had a very strict zero tolerance policy
Like
because of
drinking in your
things,
room or something like that,
that, right? Because of things that had happened in prior years before I got there. So this zero tolerance policy is put in effect, and I get booted off of campus, and I go and I end up.
What did you do, man?
It's such a silly thing, and I've actually told this story a bunch of other times, but essentially I got caught smoking weed.
Okay.
In my dorm room, and by the way, as a kid who grew up at the Jersey Shore with like a very lax atmosphere, right? This was like, wait, I can't do this,
right.
Yeah. So I get
which is
caught.
crazy now. Like thinking about like how weed is considered now.
I mean, I was just out in Los Angeles, and I was just like, you can't walk 10 steps,
right?
And like, same thing in Boston. Anyway, the evolution of all this stuff is incredible, right? But so I get booted out of my college dorm room, and I end up putting out like a Facebook post that's like, hey, I'm looking for a place to live. I ended up getting linked up with these guys that were significantly older than me, right? So they were seniors in college and had just graduated at a neighboring university down the road called the College of New Jersey. So I move in with these guys, and I'm the youngest. And all of a sudden, my entire perception of what the word cool meant changes overnight. The entire way I defined the word cool changed overnight.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell me about these guys.
This was a big turning point for me. So the guys that I moved in with owned the house that we lived in. They had made a very strategic decision their junior year to buy a college property and then rent it out, and that they were going to potentially create like a little real estate portfolio in this college town.
How do they fund that?
One was just had graduated and got his big Goldman Sachs check. He was working at Goldman Sachs in Jersey City, doing the crazy commute from that part of New Jersey. And he had put down the payment. And the other one, his father was looking for a different investment opportunity, and he was like, you can run everything. I don't want to have anything to do with it. And I think through that kind of, yin and yang, they were able to kind of put the pieces in play. And by the way, like, housing in this part of New Jersey is not that expensive, right? We're talking about like Trenton, New Jersey, right? So these guys buy this place, and they have this entrepreneurial DNA in them, and there's just incredible energy, and they had so much fun, but they really had a vision for what they wanted their lives to be.
Wow.
And like real ambition behind it. So this guy, Eddie Matthews, that I began to kind of want to emulate, that's waking up at 6 a.m. to, get on the train to go to Goldman, to, is running out the door and running back in the door, like that kind of energy.
Yeah.
Right? Is like it's infectious.
Totally. I mean, you're 18 or 17 or 18.
I'm like 18,
this guy's
19
like 22,
years old.
working at Goldman Sachs.
22, 23.
Dressed to the T's.
Sharp guy, smart. And I'm just like, these are the people that I want to be around.
Wow.
So my entire definition of like partying at college changed from degenerate is cool to
keg parties to,
these guys are really cool.
That's cool,
and that
man.
change in definition really shaped the person that I would ultimately become and evolve to throughout college. So going from getting kicked out in the first day to
best thing that ever happened to you.
Yes. Oh my God. Like, talk about life throwing you curveballs and turning lemons into lemonade. Like, this is it. And I actually go as far in the opposite direction to I end up becoming like a student admissions counselor, an ambassador for the university. I'm on like print materials and brochures. I become this like face.
You're the poster child. You got kicked out of the dorm, but you're the poster child of the university.
I've been going from literally not being allowed in a dorm room to being on all the materials for college. It just like completely changed the trajectory.
Just looking back at my own life, there's these moments that are just game changers, right? There's like these pivotal moments, and you falling in with these guys and becoming like the poster child of the university, and having that amazing I guess it was a pretty big personal transformation
for sure
that these guys inspired, right?
Yep. These moments, right, are so unexpected, right? Like we can't perceive or predict that this moment in time is going to be the thing that changes the trajectory, but hindsight's 20/20. We look backwards and we're like, wow, what a catalyst that was.
Yeah.
And it takes time for that to play out. But I can clearly look back now, and I was texting back and forth with this guy yesterday, and I text them periodically, and I just say thank you, because I can look back at that moment in time and go, it was so huge for me.
What are those guys doing now? Do they still own that house, first of all?
So they do, and
like 20 others
they
probably.
own like 4 others, I believe. And those guys now, so Eddie is he went a more entrepreneurial route. He works for an eBay, Amazon business that is the largest supplier of a very specific product, and just took all of his skills and knowledge from Goldman in terms of business and applied it to a very different thing. And it couldn't be in a better spot right now. Just got engaged. He has an annual party at his place that's always great, where we get to catch up. And then the other guy basically went to college for something and then graduated and was like, nope, I'm going to become a nurse. Went to nursing school, and then also runs a real estate portfolio and sells homes on the side in New York. And he's just like he's a stud as well. Just bought.
He lives in the city?
Yeah. No. So he's actually North Jersey, but sells homes in North Jersey.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
So those 2 guys were like the main.
Yes.
dudes.
Those guys were the, and it's like, it's funny, like they've both achieved a degree of success that makes them so incredibly happy in what they're doing.
Yeah.
So it's not like I needed to look up to these guys that were on a fast track to become CEOs of massive companies. It was just like, no, they're doing exactly what they want to do. And they were so uniquely themselves throughout the entire process that they weren't confused about becoming something they weren't.
Right.
So they didn't need to turn around and look at their life at 35 and be like, who do I want to become? They were like, no, like I know from the jump, and now they're in the best place they could be by age 30.
Amazing.
Ready to start the next chapter.
That's amazing, man. So did you study like business stuff in
marketing, advertising?
Okay.
Yeah, I had some great early experiences in my my late teens, so 17, 18, 19, working on commercial production sets, and I had some good mentors.
Like these were
and
jobs
people
that you
around.
had?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. A friend of mine's uncle owned a production company, and every time somebody called out, I would get a phone call like, "Hey, we need you to drive a van to New York City from Jersey and like help us on this set." So those experiences were huge for me really early. And then
how so though? Like what was huge about them?
So people are people, right? And you don't realize that until you're in the same sphere as somebody you've only seen on a television or movie screen, and you recognize for the first time that people are people. Right?
Yeah.
We hold these people to so incredibly high standards.
Yeah.
And then you spend some time with them. And not to say that like, your idols or your heroes aren't who they thought they were, but
I know what you're saying, man.
They're humans, right?
Yeah, my office in the city, I have a lot of celebrity patients, like, some big ones.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, like when they're sitting in a blue gown in the chair in your office, and like, they're just another human, man. And
right?
they're still amazing human beings.
Of course.
That I have a tremendous amount of respect for. Can never do half the things that they do, but at the end of the day, we all bleed red, right? So
and what's great is you can recognize somebody's God-given talent when it manifests in a way like acting or singing, or comedy, right? Like or athleticism. You can recognize that because it's visual. But some people's God-given talents aren't these tangible things that you can point to. It's their ability to connect with somebody. It's their ability to communicate a vision. It's their ability to assemble a team. And I think that because societally we don't hero those things as often, people aren't able to find those things within themselves and let them come to light.
Yeah, man.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, so what I learned super early from being on sets with, my first production set was with Nicki Minaj, and I was like, people are people, right? So that kind of foundation helped me understand super early.
Right.
And then I studied marketing and advertising in college. I recognized that I wanted to be in
because you were interested in it?
I was. Yeah, no, I was genuinely curious about communications because I kind of looked at my skill set and I was like, what matches back? Marketing and advertising, conveying a message on behalf of a brand or business. And then I pursued that, and I recognized also very early that my personality, who I am, my DNA, was probably best suited in a marketing or advertising agency culture, right? We reward and we hero creativity in those cultures, where in other lines of business, it's a bit more suppressed. And that type of creativity wasn't something I thought I could suppress. And while I wanted to always acknowledge my level to operate in a business capacity, the thing I really wanted to foster super early was my creativity. And again, 2020, looking backwards, right? These were just a series of decisions that I made that got me to the place I am today.
So let's just talk about that a little bit, man.
Yeah.
So you graduated college, and then what happens?
I graduated college. It took me an extra year because I spent some great time in Spain having too much fun.
Did you take time off from college?
So I didn't, no time off, but I went to Spain, took 5 classes, failed 3 of them. Have an amazing story about a podiatrist who wrote me a letter to map back to food poisoning while I was in Africa that eventually got me the credits back. It just took more time to happen. Like, these are... When you build real relationships with people, you can ask them to do crazy things because they don't think you're trying to get one over on them. Right. And when you sit down with the dean of students and you say, hey, I have a career opportunity. I desperately want to complete this. I know that the 3 days that I was absent from my classes in Spain that ultimately ended up like putting me in a position to fail by 0.5 points is now reflecting in a way. And I understand that these are the rules, but like, I promise you, I have so much good energy for this university and respect for what we're trying to accomplish here that like nothing over the 4.5 years prior to the first day, maybe because of the way it was set up, would map back to me believing otherwise. This is not me trying to get one over on the university. This is me saying like, these are the rules. This is what happened. I have this letter to support. What do you think? And like, luckily they kind of, they were like, okay, cosign, we're going to let you go. Like,
wow.
Yeah. And like, there's a lot of amazing people that play into that process. It's probably, there's probably some plot holes in that story that I can fill in if anybody has any questions about it. But I graduate school again, though. Can I tell a story?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So I'm in Spain, my last semester of college. And I'm at a kiosco, is an outdoor bar on the riverside in the south of Spain. And that sounds really fancy, but when you go and you travel to these places, no different from anywhere else in the world. And I step up to the bar and I order a beer. And I start talking with the bartender. He speaks great English. And he's like, do you play basketball? And I'm like, I do. And he's like, what size shoe are you? He goes, would you want to play tomorrow? And I was like, I'd love to, but I don't have basketball shoes, and I didn't bring proper shoes. And he was like, what size are you? I'm like 10.5. And he like reaches below the bar and he throws a pair of basketball shoes on the counter, and he's like, come and play with us tomorrow. And I'm like, I have no excuse now. I have to go play basketball, right? So I meet him and I hop in this random car and we drive almost 45 minutes outside the city. And it's my first week in this new city and a foreign country of 1 million people. And I'm like, I'm in the back seat of a car with these 2 strange Spanish dudes that I don't really know. Where are we going right now? Like, I literally am the kid who took candy from a stranger and is now in the back of a car going somewhere. What am I doing? And we get to this place, and there's like probably there's like 10 guys, all 30 and above, into their 50s, playing pickup basketball on this court. And I'm just like, I'm the only person that speaks only English. Everybody else speaks Spanish first and like maybe some broken English, except for the guy that I came with. He co-signs on me. And I end up having this amazing relationship with all of these guys where every week we drive 45 minutes outside the city to play basketball. And that's the thing that unifies us and unites us. And that right there, before entering the workforce, helped me understand how inherently good people are. No matter where you are in the world, how inherently good people are. And I know people have had some bad experiences in other places where, maybe they got pickpocketed while they were visiting a foreign country, whatever, right? That is not the example of the true testament to how incredibly good people are. I think mine's a better example. So that, and what's amazing about this is this individual is coming to the States in August. We're doing dinner. He comes in every few years. Like, you need to keep in touch with these people that touch your life in an incredibly impactful way. So, it just taught me super early to give without expectation. In this world where you're just waiting sometimes for the person to stab you in the back or like you're looking over your shoulder because you're afraid somebody's on your heels coming for you. Like nobody's actually coming for you. Nobody wants to stick the knife in. Like that's you. And the faster you get over that and surround yourself with good people, I think the less you'll look back in fear. So Jose Manuel really opened up the door for me. I made so many incredible relationships while I was over there. I came back from Spain, had a completely different mentality, and I was ready to enter the workforce. And I think that served me incredibly well. And that's when I started my professional path.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah, it was really impactful.
That story really does capture the good. Yeah, I'm a big believer in that too. Like, people are inherently good, and you're good until you prove yourself otherwise.
That's it.
But you're good at baseline.
Yeah.
So from that, you come back from Spain. Like, how did you end up working with Gary?
Yeah. So I had been following Gary while I was in college. I saw a random YouTube video about smurfing it up and following your passions.
What year is this about?
So I graduated in 2014, 2 years prior, 2012. 2011 is when I find this video, maybe 2010, right? End of 2010, man. Early 2011.
I didn't even hear of Gary until 2018 almost.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's the thing, right? Like, I'm a college kid, and at this stage, the internet and social media is in its very early infancy stages, right? And college kids are on Facebook. So I'm on Facebook, and I see this video of this guy talking to an audience, talking about pursuing your passions and following your goals and smurfing it up, and I'm like, this guy is crazy. He's nuts. There's just too much energy here. He's cursing a bunch. But I watched almost the full keynote, right? I get sucked in. And that did not convert me. But I was in a FedEx Kinko's, and the Thank You Economy book, his second book, is on the shelf. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to pick this up. I don't know, just pick it up. I end up reading it cover to cover. And I reach out to him on Twitter and I say, I want to come and intern for you. He says, we're only taking interns that are going back to college, or that aren't going back to college. And I'm like, I'm first kid from my family. I got to finish college. My mom's going to kill me. So I complete college and I find that tweet. I screenshot it and I send it to him on email. He doesn't answer. So you
reached out to him while you were in college to intern for the summer.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, so now you're done with college and you go back, whatever, a year or two to the tweet that you sent him.
Perfect.
And you email it to him.
Yes.
Okay.
I sent to him again. I tweeted at him. He says, email me. I email him again. He doesn't answer. Right? This guy's getting tons of emails. He's not seeing my email. I have to break through. I find the most active person on Twitter from the company. I DM them. I send them the screenshot. I send them the communication. He's like, reach out to this person. I get my interview. I get in the door. I get hired as the first photo intern. And that's when I started my career at Vayner.
So what is that? What is that exactly?
2013.
And what's photo intern?
June 27th, 2013.
Wow.
So I was the first staff photographer at Vayner Media.
Really?
Yeah. So this is 2013. But this is that seems like a glamorous role. But when you think about it, the agency's 100 to 150 people. Social media is in its infancy stages. Yeah. You could, for the first time, you can post photos you can post videos on Facebook. The first time, Instagram is brand new, to the general public. People are just figuring this stuff out. So when we say staff photographer, it's he's the best with an iPhone.
Right.
Yep. And I do have, I've a hobbyist. My father was a hobbyist photographer. I got my first DSLR camera when I was, 13 years old for Christmas. So, wielding a camera was kind of my thing.
Yeah, I mean, even your Instagram, you roll through your Instagram. It's they're very artistic shots.
I love photography. Again, fostering that creativity early. That's, it paid dividends in the long term. But I become the first staff photographer, and I just immediately started over-indexing and building and cultivating relationships with people. And that manifests into kind of me climbing the ladder and eventually getting on Gary's radar in my career and transitioning from this creative role to in a new business capacity, leading new business for Vayner Media for the better part of a year and a half. And that's probably 2.5 years into my trajectory working for Gary and Vayner Media.
So what, like, so you're kind of at the top of the food chain at Vayner Media, right?
That's super amazing. There's the Vayner X machine is massive.
Yeah.
It's so incredibly big. In terms of all of the companies within Vayner X now, you've got Gallery Media Group, which is a publisher. You've got Tracer, which is an ad tech platform, a SaaS service. You've got Vayner Talent and Vayner Speakers, a speaking bureau, and a talent representation company. And now you've got Sasha Group, right? So you've got all of these companies. Vayner Sports, right? So you've got all these companies that are operating within Vayner X, and we've got C-suite level executives for every one of them. I am one head of a department at the Sasha Group. So with all respect to all of my contemporaries and colleagues at Vayner X, I think there's a lot more people that do a lot more impactful things. But in terms of the leadership team at the Sasha Group that works on the small and mid-market side, I'm a part of that.
So that's amazing, man. That's some story, man.
It's the life's funny, right? And it's like, I touched on this the other day in a conversation with somebody, but when we decide to go to, in the pursuit of becoming a doctor, there's a map there, right?
Right.
What is that map?
Yeah, I mean, listen, man, it's just a lot of schooling. There's like step by step, pre-med, med school, internship, residency. It's all laid out. You just have to pick which road you're going to go down, right?
And then you had the persistence to go through that entire process.
Yeah.
And then what age are you when you come out the other side?
Fucking old. Yeah, so I was
what age? I'm
30
serious.
when I finished 31 when I started working.
I've got 3 more years to when I get to the point where you were just like really getting started.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, man. Yeah,
it's wild, right? So there's so many different paths that you can go down. I think mine was, I'm going to pursue a professional path, but I'm not going to close any doors in the process. So where you were like, I have one hallway and this is where I'm going. I was like, I've got one hallway with 100 doors, and I'm going to open up every single door on the way. And that's what ended up happening, starting as a photographer, moving into a community manager role where I worked on the brand side, moving into a new business capacity, then the head of education. This evolution of my role is because of the curiosity that I had along the way. And I think it's that malleability is what kind of, separated me in terms of somebody who wasn't afraid to take a plunge on an early company in different stages of it, right? Building out a production team on the Vayner Media side and being early stage as working on production with an agency that, so I think for anybody who doesn't, it's amazing that you're like, I know what I want to do.
Well, I mean, it's more complicated than that.
Without a doubt. Yeah. Like, let's not discredit for a second how many people get pushed into a professional path because, it's like, this is what you should do. You go down that road, you pursue it. But the fact that you pursued endlessly to the age of 31 shows a serious commitment and mindset that a lot of people don't have. Like,
yeah, it's different, man. Again, so for me, like, for you, that's looking at that, wow, that's cool. Like, that someone could do that. It's the exact opposite for me. Like, I did it. Like, what you guys do for me is like, holy shit, that's so cool. Like, I mean, that's the whole, the grass is
This is the classic, like, musicians versus athletes conversation.
Totally. Yeah. No, totally.
Every athlete wants to be a musician. Every musician wants to be an athlete. Right? The pursuit of professional athletics is a single door to a single sport where you play at the highest level.
Yeah.
And that is incredibly admirable. But the creative, the songwriter, the musician who manifests their creativity in this way is desirable for the other side.
Yeah, that's the story of life, man.
What's great about it is that there's mutual respect for both.
Yeah.
But for a second, I don't think that one is easier and one is harder.
That's so true. And the one thing, and we'll probably just close with this. I think we're getting into the 90-minute range.
Beautiful. We go for another 90.
Dude, I'm telling you, this is like flew right by. The one thing that I learned from this, that day of Vayner Media and stuff, is you don't need to be unidimensional. So I don't have to define myself as Dr. Mudgil, the dermatologist, right? I mean, that's 25 or 20% of my life. You know, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a fitness enthusiast. I love music. I mean, there's so many aspects that make us who we are. And it's so easy to fall into the trap of your career defining you, or like whatever it is in your life that you used to define you. Being a husband, being a wife, being divorced, being fat, being skinny, you know, it's so easy to say, okay, this is who I am, and like that's who I'm going to be for the next 40 years.
Yeah.
You know, it's embracing that how we're all so multidimensional, like you, like, you know, the story that you shared. There's so much texture and there's so many aspects to that, and you're only 28, man. Like, you know, who knows what the hell is going to happen? Like, you know, and you're keeping those doors open is I guess my point of what I'm saying is, like, you know, you're allowing yourself to be multidimensional, you know, and that to me is such a beautiful thing. And when I say you're evolved, you know, you are evolved because everything that you've spoken today in your story and the way you describe how events in your life affected you and molded who you are is someone who is like so evolved at such a young age. And it's something that, you know, I really admire, man.
I appreciate that more than you could ever imagine. And there's two things that I want to say to end this. Is the first one is something I can't remember who said it or who I heard it from, but she or he said, people want you to be a finished sentence. People want you to be a dermatologist, period. People want you to be a mother, period. As soon as we start adding things on, people become confused.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to spend the time to understand you and who you really are.
I love that, man.
So, like, for me, I'm just like, I'm never going to be a finished sentence.
Right.
Ever. Never going to be a finished sentence. And then in terms of this, like, evolved and evolution, I think it's so important that, like, God, humans are humans, and as long as you're on the path to wanting to ask yourself more questions, discover who you are, who you truly are, as long as you are on the path to want to surround yourself with people who also want to ask themselves those questions, that's my belief of what an evolved human is. Somebody who doesn't look at the world around them and say, this is it, this is what I'm good with. And for those people, amazing. Like, that's great, right? Like, but those aren't the people that I want to be jamming with. Like, I want people that almost feel unstable because they're constantly questioning the things that are going on around them and are endlessly curious to just ask more questions. So in terms of this evolution, man, I have fights with my girlfriend. I eat 4 slices of pizza. Like, I get bad night's sleep. I make bad decisions, but like, I'm endlessly curious. And I'm not this terrible judge of myself that puts myself in a position where I can't recover. I'm just curious to figure out who I am, and I'm gonna do it with people along the way that are good at the core and are also curious about who they want to be.
I don't think there's a better way to close this podcast, my man. I can't thank you enough for making the trip out from the city. This was an awesome way to spend my morning, man. I really, really appreciate you.
Love it, man. I don't even need to get a workout in. I feel great.
That's it, awesome. Man. Talked it out.
Awesome.
All right, brother.
Nice
well,
talk.
Good. Dude, that was awesome, man. Amazing. I really loved that. I really enjoyed that. That was very, very cool, man.
That was awesome.
I really like that, man. Thank you for listening to the Dr. Mudgil podcast. The audio for this podcast can be found on Apple's iTunes and SoundCloud. Let's get it.